Hi, my name is Brian Curtis, and I'm the founder of Decentralized Systems. And I've been talking for the last couple minutes with Dr. Rob Pennington and Marshall Townsend. I'm honored to have you both here. Sounds like you guys have an exact background that I'd like to talk about. Anyway, so go ahead and continue, Marshall, with what you were talking about. You were speaking,
Yeah,
we're talking
great
about how,
trademark.
yeah.
Uh, my name is Marshall Townsend. My company is MT2 Leadership, and which is Marshall Townsend the second leadership, MT2. Okay. Um, and I'm a executive leadership coach, but I'm also a keynote speaker. And the thing we were just talking about was one of my keynotes that I really love that I wrote a couple of years ago for the First Tee program for their leadership academy and presented it to them was called Mark Your Ball. And it's leadership lessons from the game of golf. And um, and if you play, you don't have to play golf to understand it. I've used this a number of times. I was flown at actually the Wyoming to speak to about 400 leaders at the Air Force Base out there at Warren Air Force Base on this theme. And I was really surprised with the number of them that came up afterwards and said that was just on target. So
I've learned a lot from golf. I like golf because it's the only game you can really point your finger at and say, you're not really playing against anybody. You're playing against yourself. And it's psychological warfare, right? I mean, the whole game is just making sure that you're psychologically in the right spot at the right time to approach everything in the right way. So, yeah.
and I don't know if we want to get it right now. We want to have Dr. Rob introduce himself, but
Yeah, go for it, Rob.
I
Okay.
can talk about that.
I'm Dr. Rob Pennington. I'm the Upside Down Doctor. I help people find the upside of their down times. That's the name of my book. And also how to remain calm in the storm. So it's all about that we have way more power and potential to influence how we're feeling than most of us have any idea of. Most of us kind of think of ourselves as a victim. And I've been doing this as an executive coach, as a trainer, and as a keynote speaker for a long time.
Do you have any specific techniques you'd like to share? I mean,
I've got the how to speed through stress in 5 steps in 15 seconds, how to end conflict in 3 questions, how to have more agreement in 6 stages. Yeah, so I've got a bunch of them.
Okay.
In the speed through stress, it's basically learning how to breathe, relax, which is definitely necessary for good golf, reassure yourself, think positive, look for some humor. And the problem is what we're already really good at is what I call the automatic stress reaction. Happens anytime anything or anyone's not the way we want it to be. We hold our breath, we tense our muscles, we have self-doubt, we think negative and get serious. And we're already really good at that. So we're never going to not do that. You can't control your initial reaction to anything. If I knew you well enough, I could probably say one word with a tone of my voice and push an emotional wave through you of hurt, stress, anger. Your family knows how to do this. But recognizing it gives you the opportunity to move to the proactive stress response and breathe, relax, reassure yourself, think positive, look for some humor. And the more you do that in what I call the elementary school lessons in life, the more you can when the graduate school lessons come. So in my book, I talk about getting fired, divorced, shot in the center of my chest by an unknown assailant, my wife's multiple sclerosis and passing, and I just was diagnosed this year with pancreatic cancer, kind of the worst cancer diagnosis. And so my business partner says, that should be my next chapter in my book. I got diagnosed with cancer. It's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
It's overcoming those survival instincts, right? It's
yeah. And
natural
it's not like we're not going to have them. The goal is not to not have stress. It's to learn how to recognize it quicker and move through it faster. And that's what the Calm in the Storm program is all about, which I
Awesome.
can drop my logo up there too.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah, I talk about that in my growth, live cast, because everything is cyclical. Growth is cyclical. And, you see how in the wintertime, everything's kind of stressed, but then it blooms, in the springtime. So in order to grow, you really have to create those stress, situations and then understand how to overcome them. And then it creates these great opportunities for growth.
It's called life.
Yeah, we're seeing it now socially, right?
True. And, the problem with the victimness, that you're mentioning is that people don't think they can do something about the situations of their lives because they don't think they have much to do with how they got to those situations in the first place. I remember I had a lady in counseling who had been married 8 times. It was kind of like a hobby. And her complaint was they were all the same. And I was like, what's the common denominator here?
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I-
You have anything to say about that, Marshall?
Oh, I do. You can. It's a theme that runs right along with what I was talking about in my golf. Is that when I play golf, it's high adventure. When you're out in the golf course, you never know what you're going to get.
Every shot.
Every shot is high adventure. But there's another game that everybody plays, and that's the game of driving range. And have you ever played driving range? Anybody?
Absolutely.
Here's what I like about driving range is that it's always flat and level. You get a bucket of balls. When you're done hitting your bucket, it's got 30 balls in it. When you're done, you're done. You go to the clubhouse. On a golf course, I could be out there all day. I could hit it 30 times on the first hole. So I never know how many I'm going to hit. But the question I always ask is, have you ever met anybody that lives their life like they're on the driving range? And that is when they show up, they expect, better yet, they demand a flat level playing field. They demand that their bucket of balls only has 30 balls in it. Don't give me any more. I'm here to do the minimum amount of effort for the maximum amount of pay. And the one thing you never do on the driving range is you never mark your ball. You don't mark the ball. You stand there and hit them. And because what happens when you mark your ball, it's kind of like magic, is you take ownership of the ball. Not only just of the ball, but where it goes, what it does, who it impacts, and where it winds up. And not only do you get ownership, you get responsibility for where it goes, what it does, who it impacts.
You're the one who marked it.
Yeah, it's yours. It's yours to mark that.
Right.
But people on the driving range mentality, on the golf course, if you want a flat playing field, you got to shoot for it. You got to try and get there. You got to work to get to the flat and level. People on the driving range expect somebody else to level the ground for them, so they show up. They don't want to have they don't want to have divots even. I want a plastic mat. It's that bad. Yeah,
With a little white thing that's going to hold my ball.
Yeah, in fact, I'm not only going to bend over and put my ball. I want to be on a driving range where the automatic machine tees up the ball for me. And that's how they live their life, is they expect that. But they'll tell you they're playing golf, right? Because, they're wearing the plaid pants, short pants and black knee socks, just like me, on the golf course.
That's a really good analogy. I think
wonderful
that's why I don't
analogy.
like to spend too much time on the driving range, right? Because you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. I'd rather just play the game of golf, right?
Well, I built a workshop that it has a whole section on the practice range. What is it we're trying to do there on the practice range? But it's all designed to set you up to be successful out on the course. The driving range is not end state. Too many people live their lives as the driving range is the end state. So it's to me, it was this great analogy to walk you through the process of leadership, of taking ownership and responsibility for what you're doing. And it was funny when I was giving it the first time to the First Tee program, you like to study your audience, right? And the audience is 100 kids, all ages 16 to 18, and basically teenagers, and a bunch of coaches were in there. And I'm speaking from the stage the first time on this, and their heads are going up and down. Yes. And I'm looking at the coaches. And when I ran up against my time window, the coaches in the back were doing this. Keep going. Keep going. So that's a good sign when you're on
That's
stage.
a very good sign.
And the audience is saying, don't stop. Keep going. And
Bravo.
I developed 10 chapters that go out of that. That will be a workshop and then ultimately a book.
Well, and let me encourage you to think about this kind of online digital program too, because one of the things in NSA is we talk about repurposing content. So you're delivering your content in a multiple set of venues for different people who prefer that kind of access. So like one of my target markets are physicians, and I found that doing coaching with physicians, the best time to talk to them is when they're in their car.
Just because they can concentrate a little bit better on
Well, they don't have anything else to think about.
right.
And they've got, maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes both ways sometimes. And so all my videos are like 3 to 5 minutes, and they can listen to them in the car. And so finding ways to get your content in the most accessible way for your target market is always a challenge.
So do you
I always-
just go ahead, Marshall?
No, I was going to say, I consider myself one of the best kept secrets out there, which is not good for a speaker. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm fantastic creating product and wonderful at not letting anybody know I have it. So I believe, the old thing of build it and they will come is not probably a viable model for business. So, I hired some marketing people to help me identify what I needed to focus on and to help me through this whole process, because even though I could have done it, probably wouldn't have been as good.
Oh yeah, I'm constantly reaching out for help in areas where you just need help, right? I mean, you can't do it all, you know.
And it takes a lot of bravery to ask
Yeah.
for help.
Yeah, it does.
Because we do a lot in our lives to demonstrate professional competence. And while you're doing that, you don't want people to have questions about your competence. And asking for help is opening that door. Just so, Marshall, that's one of the good things about NSA is that we ask each other for help all the time.
No, it's good. Well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to look at the NSA
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk more about it anytime.
and add that to my kit bag. Brian, you're about to say something there. We kind of took over here from you.
Yeah, I was going to ask each of you. I'll start with Rob first. Do you sell mostly just a digital product and a recorded product, or do you do one-on-one clients as well?
Oh, mostly I do coaching executives. So I have like a 6-month engagement. But wonderfully now I incorporate my digital program into that engagement.
Okay.
So I think coaching traditionally is tell me your goals and let's set some milestones and I'll cheerlead you to your goals. Where I think that's kind of superficial. If I don't have knowledge and experience that would be valuable for you, it's not going to be as impactful. And so having this process of these modules that are me, I can direct the coachee to module 6 on, working together with others, or whatever the topic, managing your time. And then we can, they can absorb that during the week or two between our sessions. And then they bring.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Somewhere Siri is listening to me.
That was perfect.
Interesting question.
But then they bring the real life stuff. I don't like simulations. I don't like role plays. I want to be dealing with real stuff. And so it's their job to bring the real stuff. And I think people are intrinsically motivated to deal with real stuff when they feel safe to do that. And that's kind of my job to create.
Have you seen a pretty larger uptick in the survival response in the last 12 months?
Last 2 years.
Yeah.
I think what the pandemic did is it forced us to do what Marshall is already speaking about, and that is the best place to be living is facing the unknown.
Right.
And being out there with confidence, confidence, Latin with faith, to deal with the unknown without knowing how. And so I have like a cycle of creativity in my program that, you don't have to know the how to believe that you can. And I think what happens when we're facing the unknown, when a lot of things that were predictable are no longer predictable, it's frightening because a lot of us don't have the experience, the knowledge, the expertise, the talent, etc. That's all learnable, that we can march into the unknown and figure out the how. And I think that's something we all need to be reminded about.
Awesome. And I'll just direct it at you, Marshall. Go ahead and let us know, what you're specifically doing. If you have another product other than just coaching for now, or public speaking.
Well, as part of it, one of the things I mentioned earlier, I need to find coachable clients or people that are ready to get coachable. And if they're not, I help them become coachable. I do mastermind workshops. I'll do webinars. I'll help. I'm building a workshop, or a series of workshops to help them arrive at a point where they're ready to dig deeper into their company, their organization. And in the framework, which I'm using right now, is basically we lay a foundation with them as a coach to find out who they are, what they are, and why they are. And that includes kind of what are their products and services, what is their organization, who's their market, who's their target market. And then I help them dig in and develop a giver's highway, as I call it, how they take their product, their services, their why, and create value with it for their customers. And it's a triangle is what we are. So that's the top leg going up. And then the leg coming back down is how do you receive? We give and then we receive. How easy is it for your customer to buy from you? What are you doing to create a pipeline? And then what are you doing to invest into your company, your employees, your organization, and back into your dreams? How are you investing that? Which brings us back down to the other leg, back to you seeing yourself, seeing your company, and we go around that a few times when I work with them in a 6-month process. And we basically are looking for roadblocks, things that, that they have to get out of their comfort zone to achieve and keep growing, because in the center of this triangle is their dream, is their, what I call their mountain. And if they're gonna establish this platform around it with a good foundation, then it's a mountain of stone. If they don't do it, it's a pile of leaves. And at the first wind, it's gone. And
I
so
like that
anyway,
analogy.
You've got great analogies, Marshall.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, closing the circuit, between giving and receiving, that is a big thing. That's that's the name of my live stream. Circuit
well, I
breakers,
know so
right?
many people that they have their why and they have great value, but they can't sell it. They don't know how to sell their value, so it has no worth. And there's that. It's because they're afraid of the receive side.
Well, also, I think we're afraid of bragging.
Mhm.
Don't get too big a head.
Yeah.
I think we get that as a kid, and it makes us resistant to saying what we're really good at. What are the wings that we have that make us unique?
Because I want them to own that. I want them to own that value and own their worth, and not be afraid of it. And a lot of them, like you just said, are sitting on it and not doing anything.
I think, one of the things that Steve Harrison taught me, he's a great teacher for coaches and authors, etc., is you have to have such confidence in your value that it is contagious.
Yeah, you're right.
That you have no doubt about the value to your customers of what you have to offer. And when you have that, you don't have a problem with them paying you money for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of us, if we're solo entrepreneurs, money is an issue. We would like a lot of money, but we tend to underplay the value of what we have to offer. I remember, when someone first asked me what I charged for a talk, I was so embarrassed. I remember saying, would $50 be too much? I don't know. I've gotten over that. But yeah, it's an issue I think that all of us have to deal with, like you're saying, Marshall, to own the value that we offer.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure you're both in agreement with this. I've met so many people in my life where they undervalued their talents, and I could see what their talents were. They just didn't realize they were usually doing something else that wasn't in line with what their true talents were. And you can say, man, if he could just market that one thing that how to do that well, man, you'd be living the life of your dreams. Yeah.
And we question that value. All it takes is a no. You can have 1,000 people tell you. I always laugh at the stage presentation. Is you're standing on the stage speaking to 1,000 people, and it is going great, and you make eye contact with the guy in the front row who's doing this.
Right.
And you just zero in on them.
Yeah, and then the whole thing comes unglued on you because you're now trying to appease the one out of the 1,000. And
I've done that.
Tried to break them open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came to a new insight about that, and that is, first off, are the seeds I'm planting good?
Mm-hmm.
If they are, then how people respond to it tells me more about them and their readiness than about the value of what I'm offering. So, from the Bible story, some people, it's fallow ground. It's the first time they've heard it. Someone else is like, but someone else is like, wow, that's the most amazing thing. And I go, oh, okay, they've heard it 100 times, and now the fruit fell. Yep. I just happened to be there.
Yeah, that's an amazing experience when you finally see the fruit fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember I gave a talk in Chicago once. I came back a month later, same talk. Someone came up to me to talk about how much I'd grown in the month. And I went, well, thank you for noticing. But what I know is he heard things the second time he didn't hear the first time because they were there the first time too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like watching your kids grow up. Yeah.
And most of us need to hear things repeatedly.
Oh yeah, I do. I can tell you
Yeah.
that right now.
And so that's another thing we as experts who speak, coach, etc., need to be able to do is provide people multiple ways of getting the information, not just whatever the normal first step is, but other ways for them to have that repetition occur.
And it goes back to what you're saying about having the product at the back of the room. Not only have you given your speech, then what you sell from the back of the room, that the class, it's like a band playing at a nightclub. If they don't have a CD at the cash register,
They're missing their
customers
point.
want to hear more. They want to hear it again. They want to replay. They enjoyed it, so they want to be able to access it. And you're leaving loose change on
Yeah,
the
and
counter.
many times I've made more money on that than I did on getting paid to speak.
Absolutely. And then there's the follow-ups after that, where you've just left. Not only had the opportunity to buy at the event, then they can always follow up and buy.
Yeah, I used to think, people are going to want to follow up. And people come up and say, oh, that was great. We need you at our company. I say, great, call me. No. You have to be responsible for that follow-up, not them. Because they go back into their life. They may have been good intention at the moment, but they just got so much going on. So I just found ways to get contact information, give people stuff for it, and then follow up with appreciation. Thanks for attending my program. Thanks for wanting more information. What did you like? Who else do you think would be benefited? Who at your company should I contact, and would you do an introduction? So I'm always working warm leads, not cold leads.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. One of the things I built here lately was a 30-day positive quotes memes that comes in your email box.
Perfect.
Which I've now grown to 90 days. It started at 30. I said, what the heck? We'll just keep going. But putting that out there, I was really, and everybody's going, duh, Marshall. And I was like, yeah. Putting that out there, I suddenly have about 80 people that are in that program now at some level, but every one of those is a warm lead now. They're getting an email from me every day. They're getting contact from me, and I can reach out. I'm not afraid to reach out to them and say, what'd you think about today's meme? Send me a comment. And oh, by the way, I'm setting up a mastermind. I'd love to have you in my mastermind workshop.
Brilliant.
And then ultimately, then it is, and there's an opportunity to work with me as your coach.
Well, I hope what you're seeing, Brian, is it's not good enough to have some good ideas to share in the world.
Well, yeah, you really want to impact people's lives. I mean, that's
Well, and you have to know how to help them help you.
themselves, yeah.
And years ago, I think particularly experts felt if I give anything away for free, why would anyone hire me?
Sure.
But that completely gone. Now you want to give away as much as possible because that's how people find out about you. But then you always have other programs that people can participate in and sign up for.
Sure. And for me personally, I'm sure you guys are in agreement, but all those people that you help, it's all those relationships you build over time that it just has the most value in the long run. Anyway.
Huge.
Yeah.
And there's everything you can do. Once you get that mailing list going of people engaging with you, you can put polls out there. You can ask questions. When do you want to do a mastermind? In the evening time or at noon time? What works best for you?
And then you're like serving rather than selling.
And then you're connecting with them. And like you say, you're serving instead of selling.
Yeah. I'll ask you guys each one more question.
Okay.
I don't know how long these questions, how long the answers are going to be.
We're facing the unknown, Marshall.
We're on the golf course. I don't know what to do.
So I want you to try and think of your favorite story over the past 20 or 30 years, and maybe clients that you've run into, or just a great experience that you thought about you'd like to share. Because I love hearing people's stories. I mean, that's one of the number one things I like to get out of my podcast. I like to hear success stories or just an interesting story, something that you think is just worth speaking about. I'll start.
Well, I was working with a president of an organization who very successful, trusted himself a lot, but he had the opinion people should just kind of do what he has decided needs to be done. And I think he was experiencing a lot of stress about that he wasn't really aware of how that was affecting him or the people who reported to him. And so I just encouraged him to start asking more questions first to find out if people were already going in the direction he wanted them to go. Because if he told them where to go and they were already wanting to go that way, they could think, well, you didn't think I was smart enough to think about that? And that's not what he would intend at all. But if he found out that they were already going that direction, he could go, bravo, how smart are you? Go do it, and get a lot of points. If they were going in some direction different than what he was thinking, to ask questions about, tell me more, why, and present his, but ask what's the risks they see in the direction he was thinking about going. And some percentage of the time, he needs to go with them, even if he doesn't think it's best. And then at some point, maybe he does have to exert authority. And I have a TEDx talk about how to balance authority and collaboration. But when you do that, when you do exercise authority, which is what he was doing all the time, and I'm trying to get him to just do it a little bit, is you have to make sure they experience being understood about their point of view and the risks they think you're taking by not following their point of view. And you have to acknowledge you're going to be responsible for those risks, that it's on you. And I think when he started doing that, oh my gracious, he said, I have so much less stress because I don't have to do everything. I don't have to plan everything. I don't have to be responsible for everything. I have a team. And, just within a few months, his life, oh, by the way, he learned that he was also not listening to his wife either.
Oh, no.
Surprise, surprise.
Maybe he got better at that.
Yeah, he did. And she said, so how much longer are you going to be working with Rob?
Could you keep working with Rob?
Yeah, it seems to have a lot of benefits to me.
Right.
So I love that when a person makes this powerful changes that, their life becomes better than they imagined possible and much less stressful and really more joyful. And I think that's potential for anyone, as you were saying, Marshall, who really wants to take advantage of it.
So have you thought of something, Marshall? You have a
Yes,
really
I
good story
have.
you
I
might
got to tell a war story, if that's okay.
Oh,
Sure.
I call it war
I love
stories.
hearing war stories.
So after my 20 years in the military, I was brought in to be a coach and teach and trainer for the Army National Guard. And that was in 1999 is when I started that. And I did that for another 15 years. But right up front, as I took a series of classes I had on how to fight the close fight with the enemy, and basically creating analogies on how to break down the actions you do in that close fight when you get inside the red zone. I taught this series of classes all around the country where they flew me to almost 40 states where I was flown in. And then I stopped teaching that about 2007, but almost everybody I taught was deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, et cetera, after that. Well, in 2016, I was flying to my first John Maxwell event, and I was sitting in the airport in Atlanta, and this guy walks up and he goes, "Hey, Colonel Townsend." And I'm like, oh my God, they saw my picture in the post office. And he says, "Hey, what you taught us saved our lives 2 years ago in Iraq." And I was like, just blown away. And I was like, what state were you? They was like North Carolina. And I had to think back and go, that was like 2001. I taught you. And this, over 10 years later, he recognized me. And,
Wow.
I had influenced them and created content for them that was successful. So that was where you walk away with a tear in your eye going, oh my God. But that's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah,
That's
a really good
huge.
story. Did they tell you specifically how it helped them?
Yes, is that they got pinned down in a town with a sniper, and they sat back, and the comment he said was they all looked at each other and said, "What would Colonel T do right now?" And he said, "We would break it down, not wait for somebody else to come do it. We're going to solve it ourselves and go through the process." And they got out of it. So
Oh, that's a really good lesson.
Bravo.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I can't say how blessed I feel, being in the company of you two guys. And, I'm always learning, right? Everyone's always learning, and it's nice to interact with as many people as possible. I found that I can learn something from absolutely anything, anybody. I learn stuff from my 14-year-old boy all the time. It's like, all right, I guess I needed to know that, right? So Yeah, I appreciate both of you. Hope we can stay in touch.
Appreciate the opportunity, Brian. Nice to meet you, Marshall.
Definitely. Thank you. Pleasure meeting both of you.
Yeah, been a
Y'all have
pleasure.
a great day.
Yeah, you guys have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.